Well, joining me live from Port Harcourt is Niger-Delta activist Ann-Kio Briggs. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight. Good to have you. I want to believe you watched keenly that 2-hour interview by Nyesom Wike, former governor and now minister of the FCT. What are your general impressions about that, that interview before we come to the details?
Good evening, and thank you for having me, and I wish you a happy Easter ahead. Yes, you're right. I did watch it because it is about Rivers State and the turmoil that we have been through since 2023. And listening to the interaction with the media this morning, there were times that I just found myself in a state of like, when is this really going to end? And is there truly any plans whatsoever that this should end, or that in fact this will end? But I think that for me, at the end of the day, because he spoke about PDP as well. And don't forget that PDP is the political party of choice of the Niger-Delta region as a whole. And particularly Rivers State, Bayelsa, all the states have always voted PDP. And so if PDP finds itself in this situation where even someone like the FCT minister, who has claimed over and over again how he rescued the PDP from literally the bed of death all by himself, to now listen and hear him say that the PDP is dead is horrifying. And thank God I am not a politician, but I am interested in what politicians do in our name. But I'm also grateful that PDP is not the only political party that is in Nigeria, and that we in Rivers State and the Niger-Delta will not be stranded at the end of the day when it comes to voting. If we choose to vote, we will choose the candidate we will vote for, and not be threatened and bullied and terrorized into voting for this candidate or that candidate. Moving forward, the other aspect that really saddened me was where the FCT minister said that apart from the fact that we are under emergency rule, where there is a serious argument as to its legalities and illegalities, the role that the National Assembly played, and all of that.
Yes. Now
I
that you come to that,
wonder.
Right. Now that you come to that, let me just quickly throw this in and get your reaction. When Nyesom Wike says that, look, he's not happy that President Tinubu actually declared a state of emergency in Rivers State, that he actually wanted Governor Sim Fubara out of the way, as in removed completely as the governor of the state.
Well, I don't. I've tried to figure out. I've spoken to lawyers, and I've tried to find out under what circumstances the president could immediately, just at the flick of a hand, his fingers, actually give the FCT minister what he wants on a platter of gold. That is to say that what he wanted was that the governor of Rivers State should be removed. So it is all about what the FCT minister wants. Whether it is in Rivers State, or whether it is in the National Assembly, whether it is in the court, or whether it is in the villa, it is really just what he wants, which really, as a grown-up human being, as a Rivers person, is frightening that we could find ourselves in a situation where we have a president that is likely to find himself in a situation where he will be reduced from being a president to actually being a president that is there at the whims and caprices of a minister or a governor or anybody else, or maybe a member of the National Assembly, then I believe that Nigeria is, as a whole, is in trouble, not just Rivers State. What's playing out politically in Rivers State today is horrifying to us, but let no one think that it cannot happen to them. Because if it can happen to Rivers State, it can happen to any government, any governor in Nigeria. And if you look at what's happening all over the world, if you look at Ukraine, if you look at Europe, you look at what Trump is doing in his own country, democracy is in absolute shambles right now. It's about people and their interpretation of democracy. And that's not democracy. Democracy is about the people and what the people want and what the people say democracy is, and not just what one person believes that democracy is. And if it doesn't go his or her way, then the whole thing should scatter. It won't affect just one person.
Right. Okay. So let me just put you on hold. I mean, it's a month today. On March 18th this year, President Bola Tinubu actually declared a state of emergency in Rivers State over the lingering political crisis that began in October of 2023 with the burning of the hallowed chamber of the State House of Assembly. 1 month on, how well has the appointed sole administrator, Ibas, a retired vice admiral of the Nigerian Navy, fared on the saddle?
The declaration of a state of emergency by President Bola Tinubu, who cited growing political instability and rising security concerns, and the eventual approval by the National Assembly through a voice vote, was a rude shock to many, especially residents of Rivers State. But like a bitter pill, both the suspended governor, his deputy, members of the State House of Assembly, and Rivers people are reluctantly coming to terms with the reality. Expectedly, those who bear their minds on the 1 month tenure of the sole administrator expressed mixed feelings.
Within this 1 month, has laid the basic governance structure, has laid it on ground. He has laid the foundation on ground, and that is to ensure that the personnel of government is properly put in place up to the local government level.
Today, you can see that he has constituted local government administrators. And looking at the list, the people he has sent to the local government to administer there, to man the local government areas, they are all cronies of the FCT minister.
You can see that the sole administrator has brought relative peace in Rivers State. His short stay has brought back relative peace. At least there are no more threats of attack on our pipelines, national assets.
What are the expectations from a Rivers sole administrator as he strives to restore peace and return governance to the democratically elected governor and the legislature?
But we didn't see him do all that. The next thing we saw was dismantling the structures that were in place. We began to see, and he began to do appointments by himself. I don't know what he was told anyway, but I feel that those actions, cannot be said to be peaceful actions. And that is why I see that people have started reacting.
And ensure that there is absolute peace, there is no threat to law, no breakdown of law in Rivers State, and no threat to peace in Rivers State. that should be his focus.
The recent constitution of a 21-man committee by the House of Representatives to perform oversight functions over the administration of Rivers State is also attracting reactions.
It's coming too late, very late. This would have been a process that would have initiated earlier enough to spot every movement of this issue of declaring of state of emergency in Rivers State. Because we've not seen anything that warranted state of emergency in Rivers State.
What I would think as a person is that they should be coming with the agenda of making sure there is peace in Rivers State, and for the democratic institution to be restored back.
As Rivers people await the House of Representatives committee to get to work, there have been protests by different groups calling for both a continuation and an end to the emergency rule declared by President Tinubu. Whichever side of the divide members of these groups may belong, the voice of those calling for a return of the state's democratic structures seem louder. From Port Harcourt, it's Andy Omano, Arise News.
Right, I'm sure you saw that report. Well, 1 month on today, how would you assess the actions, the tenure of the sole administrator in the last 1 month? How would you assess, his work, his actions, inactions, if you like, in the last 1 month in Rivers State?
I must repeat myself at this point, where I have said in the past that if we listen again to what the president said when he declared the state of emergency, he said he was declaring the state of emergency because there are security concerns. And this is why I also raised my voice and said, no, that is misinformation, if that is the information that the president is working with. Number one, that there is insecurity in Rivers State to the extent of declaring a state of emergency as the Constitution allows and as amended. That is not true. There were no pipes that were being blown up at that time that could have guaranteed, that could have justified the declaration of state of emergency. But I want to take us back to what we all heard the minister say today, that he actually did not want the president to declare a state of emergency, that he wanted the governor to leave. Now, how that could have happened, I don't know, because that would have meant that the State Assembly would have had to impeach him. That is probably the quickest way, if they went through the proper way of doing impeaching a governor. Which really should take months. That's one side. Then the other side of it, that the way that the Ibas came along, he was sworn in before the state, the National Assembly ratified his declaration, and then after that, the same situation has taken place where he that is on an illegality is now doing illegalities by appointing local government administrators. Now, there is nothing in the Constitution for local government administrators. You must vote for local government. So he is pouring petrol on the so-called problem that he came to solve.
All right, speaking of problem, very quickly, we'll have to wrap it. We'll have to wrap it here. Wike says if Fubara asks for forgiveness for causing political crisis in Rivers State, he's willing to forgive. What do you make of that? Very quickly.
To be quite honest, I don't understand that Fubara should ask for forgiveness on what grounds, on what and for what reasons, to God or to who? Forgiveness of what? You know, in our opinion, Fubara is far from being the problem.
Okay, and it's a good place to leave it. Thank you very much. Ann-Kio Briggs is a Niger Delta activist joining us on Newsnight.